Congratulations on the films.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think it's really nice to finally be letting this out into the world. It's been a long time.
Yeah, for sure. 5 years, right?
5+ years, three children, lots of headaches, laying on the floor, trying to get through it. So it's good.
So, what's harder, movie one, going into the world blind, or movie two, given the success of the first one?
I mean, movie one was a bar that we had to make work. It had to capture the imagination of people, and you know, a movie musical is also a tougher bar. How do you convince a wider audience? I mean, this was a big swing. We shot two movies at the same time. Ariana's is her first movie that she's ever led, and she had to lead two movies. You have Cynthia Erivo, who we know is going to kill it, but at the same time, this is a very different role for her. You have a musical that is beloved, but doesn't necessarily translate directly into a movie. And so there was a lot of questions of could we pull this off? And so it was really nice to have people bring it into their lives. And movie two, in a weird way, allowed us to stretch further with the emotions of this relationship because we knew that people had fallen for them and bought into our world. And so it gave me a little bit more freedom to just stretch it and push it and be a little less predictable in a weird way. Movie one is the fairy tale. It is all the beats that you expect. It's American storytelling. It's the high school movie. It's the coming of age movie. It's a romance. It's a rom-com. All these things, and it's a superhero movie. At the end, she gets to do her thing. But movie two, it's where our fairy tales fall apart and where it's shattered in front of us. And so, and we had more room to be able to explore what does it feel like after you've made the big decision? Where does courage come from to stick it through? Where does courage come from a woman who lives in a bubble and doesn't have to actually engage with the reality of injustices? What would compel her to? And can we say that courage does not have an expiration date and that she can come around and she can also do wicked things and have wicked things done to her? And can they forgive each other? So it was in a weird way more cinema, I guess, that we could get into and get our hands around. A lot of the times we were talking about movie one last year, we were talking about our whole experience
Hmm.
because we had lived the lives with them by the time anyone saw one frame of movie one. So it's complicated, I guess I would say, more than anything else.
For sure. And also, look, I'm a Wicked stan, but I think everyone would acknowledge the second half of the musical is not as strong as the first just because it doesn't have a defying gravity. So, how
Yeah.
did you approach that knowing that you weren't going to have that, and look, everyone loves For Good, but it didn't have that big hit musical song that you were going to
Yeah.
have from the first one?
Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, it fit the form. It fit the idea of, all right, how can music be deeper? What happens when you don't have giant musical numbers that are flashy and fun and all those things? And you had to be more character driven in this one because that's what we were following. The plot is the plot. I mean, in a weird way, you sort of know what's about to happen, and there are some twists and turns, of course. And then this house falls in the middle of this thing, so you have this giant iceberg that drops on your story. And so for me, it was what does that mean? Oh, I guess what happens when this story that is the system that we have all lived with suddenly drops into the middle of your messiness of life, and can you navigate around it and stuff like that? So um, I think we just had to know what we were trying to say in this movie, and that came very early. I wouldn't be making this movie if it wasn't for the second part, because I think the second part is the actual new point of view of it. It is that I hope that we get from it that there is beyond even the friendship, which is what it's all about. It's about the girl, stupid, is what our mantra over and over and over again. But what happens when when that dream is more nuanced than that? What happens when you question the home that you're actually defending? Like that's a very resonant idea, especially right now. That it's not just the hero saying "defend home." We know exactly. There's no clarity in that. It is messy, and friendships that where someone actually deceives you, somebody actually does something that feels um, that doesn't feel good, that actually went against your trust. And so I just think that in a weird way, our artist side was able to come to life more in this and try to wrestle with it. And you do have a defying gravity. I mean, you have no good deed. It's just the opposite of it. You know, it is a
Mhm.
surrender to a power that whether she wants to or not, maybe there's a little shame in that. But she rips this thing apart. And you watch Cynthia's eyes in this and what she's communicating and her path through her life. It's not a reflection of her younger self where it's so innocent. It's a reflection of her younger self that we knew her at. And what were her intentions when she did this thing? Was it just for attention, I think she says, or was it
Mhm.
something darker? Was it ego? And how is she going to resolve herself at that point? Even something as simple as an "I Want" song. You know, in a musical, every time you start it, you have to do. There are certain rules of a musical. You have to have the opening number to establish the language, and then you have to have the "I Want" song, so you know what they want. But there is no "I Want" song. But there is too. There's this song "Couldn't Be Happier," where Glinda actually. But the difference is she's singing the words that are the opposite of what she wants. So now you're reliant on Ariana understanding that as a performer. And now she's publicly speaking, and yet what she's saying inside is also in the same words. It's double, triple entendre in it, and the camera doesn't leave her. You know, she knew it so well that I could just push in and never cut away from her and just let her do it. And it's Ariana Grande, so everyone's looking for Ariana Grande within it to see how good can she do it. And she never breaks. She is Galinda through and through, and I think that that's more impressive than anything. And that's the same thing with Cynthia. As she's sort of deconstructing what Alphaba is.
I've heard you talk a lot about how you deconstructed Defying Gravity for the first song, for the first movie. What song did you give this treatment to? I mean, I've seen the film, but I'd love to hear you talk about like what song you reapproached for the second film or songs in the same way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the one that I think is interesting is As Long As You're Mine, because the intention of the song is sort of different than how we play it. In the
Hmm.
show, they are both on their knees and they're singing to each other, and it is a love ballad, just like Kiss Me Too Fiercely, the first words. So you don't have much to go after Kiss Me Too Fiercely. Like they have arrived. And yet in the story, we don't have much room for their relationship to build. We did some work of it in movie one, which is always tough because it dangles. There's no conclusion to that. It goes nowhere in movie one. It's sort of
Hmm.
planting these seeds. But in movie two, we really understood that as long as you're mine, it had to be the woo. It had to be the thing that maybe it had to get them together, not be together, unless we created a totally other scene. But there, we had this great song in there, and so in rehearsals with Johnny and Cynthia, it was what is it that Johnny sees in her that makes that is it lust? Is it love? And what is it about the love? Because they haven't had a ton of experiences with each other. And it was this idea that when he walks in, he's been living a shell of a life. He does not know how to escape this thing that he agreed to do. He's so trapped, and yet he's awake inside this trapped body. And when he gets taken to her nest, you can see him looking around. And we did this in rehearsals. He said that as he looks around, he thinks, wow, she has so much dignity.
Hmm.
But despite what everyone has said, she has made herself a home, something he has not been able to do, with comfort and knows herself so well. And so his approach to her at that moment in the mirror, and he takes off her coat, this weight, this battle gear, and he slowly takes it off. Now that is very sensual. Is it sexual? I don't think so at this point. It is them getting to know each other. It is touching her skin, which even when you're acting, it's like, hey, is this green paint gonna rub off? We had to make sure that this green paint would never rub off, so nobody had to be any scared of touching it in any way. So we said, hey, look, touch it, touch it. Let's make it very comfortable to touch green, okay? So that it never felt like anyone was hesitant, or at least with Fierro. And so when he takes that off, and then she walks away, and then she sings "Kiss Me Too Fiercely" as if it was a wish or a question. Would he? Could he? Could she? And then as she walks up the stairs and observes him and watches him examine her place, this has been a very private place for her. So it's breaking this thing in a way that the actual text is different than what we're playing. And then he sees the propaganda. We talked a lot about this is that when he puts down the propaganda, he looks at her and that's when he says, "You're beautiful."
Yeah.
What does he mean by that? And she even says, "You don't have to lie to me." And he
Hmm.
then steps to her and he gets on one knee at that point. He steps down, goes down to her. So we're hinting at this idea. And he says, "I'm not lying." And then her reaction is so beautiful. This is something that Cynthia did. She says, "Well, then what is it?" And it's almost defensive, like, "I don't believe you."
Hmm.
Is to then convince her, and he says, it's seeing the world in another way, and then he starts to sing his part, and then he starts to almost like he does this little thing about you put me under your spell, and he sort of like does this like funny look to her, and she laughs at it. It's the first time she's smiled in a long time, and so this woo, it's becoming more intimate, it's becoming more sensual between them, and then they can get up, and then they have this sort of playful thing outside, and then like a Warner Brothers cartoon can float in the air when it's finally connecting, and then we land them on their knees the way we know it, and then she can say, I feel wicked. To me, that was something that was scary, and at the same time, it felt so right to perform this in this way, so we could be on the journey as they fell in love through song.
Hmm.
We just had to make sure our intention was very clear and what we were telling the audience at what point in that so they could follow along. So by the end, you want them to be together. It's not like, oh, the plot says they should be together.
It solves that question, like their love becomes more earned the way that you
Yeah.
allow them to perform that song.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, that's a question coming into movie two is like, can we actually earn that? And you don't know that until you actually rehearse that number. I mean, a
Hmm.
musical is very tough because it's not plot points that get you forward. It is emotion. It is emotion. It is literally being inside somebody and watching, feeling how they hesitate or how they decide which way to go in action ultimately, and what kind of action does that lead to? And so when we actually it takes amount of trust even in the studio to say, okay, that number is going to do this, and then it takes follow through on our part to say, yeah, the things that we talked about, we're going to execute really well. And even in the mix, it's not just going to be a musical number happens so people check out. I need to understand the words that they're saying, so it has to be clear. They have to the way they move has to describe exactly what they're singing about. I have a little bit of advantage because I'm not good with like lyrics in my mind. Like when I watch a musical, I get swept. So I like it when even in the old Disney animated musicals of the golden age of you know Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast, they actually, because it's animated, they actually act, and because it's kids, they are acting out a lot of the lyrics and they're
Hmm.
painting those lyrics. And so how do you do that in a live action version of that without making it just images that are flashing in front of us like a Nickelodeon cartoon? So we have to just our intention has to be so clear, and the actors have to understand what we're doing with it, even if it's the opposite of what we know of that song.
How did the two new songs then help you with that as well?
The two new songs, in a weird way, there was a toughness to that because you have nothing that was precedent before. So we had to create. So I don't really, it's written in the script. I try to have them write it very broadly, so it's not like I'm locked into some script, which doesn't make it easy for budgeting. But I like to say, okay, this is a new song. Let's say it's something like "Girl in the Bubble." I have this great new song. It's speaking the things that I want, which it was either going to be a scene or a song. Stephen Schwartz said, it's a song. I know what it is. It's Girl in the Bubble. It's the moment that she decides to actually have the courage to pop her bubble. It's the first time she's had the opportunity and she's never taken it. So what is it? Why this time does she do
Hmm.
it? And so it's getting lost in her. And so I couldn't necessarily come up with the sort of how we are going to visually represent that until seeing her perform it and in rehearsals. And I'm watching her and I'm thinking about it. And this is pretty late in pre-production and realizing, oh, I never want to leave her close up. How do you keep a musical number interesting when you just don't leave her close up? And what are we saying? Oh, this reflection idea. We have a lot of reflections and distortions in our movie. But the idea is like, hey, even the reflection you're looking at, and we, in our life now, we are always looking at our own reflection by scrolling or selfieing and seeing what other people think of us. But maybe that mirror is also deceitful because there's always a prism between you and that image. It's looking out to in. What if the point of this is you have to be good? You can't just the word good can't just be a word, it has to be an action. Then maybe she has to get trapped in this image of looking at herself. And could we then go in and out? And so as this is happening, I'm now telling our production designer, hey, This suite of hers needs to be almost like a Muppet theater. We need to have walls be able to walk, go away, so I can come around. The wall comes back, so we can see the mirror. It needs to be able to accommodate the sequence, and for visual effects. Oh, by the way, you're going to be doing this whole sequence. Oh, camera, we're going to need things that can go through the hole and out the hole and come around, and it's going to be it has to be so clean that you don't even know what's happening. It has to be so seamless that that feels like one take. And Ari, you're going to have to, and she's doing this live as well, so she's going to have to understand what's happening, that it doesn't overtake the actual intimate emotion of that what she's performing. So that took steps, and then they can budget it, and then they can build it, and then we can do. And even then, even when we get to the mix, so we're in the mix, and we have new orchestrations recorded by an orchestra in London, and Stephen Schwartz has created this beautiful intro into it as she walks in and goes into the song. And then John Powell, our composer of the musical score, has created this great outro from the score before. And now they're both interacting. And you're like, okay, we got to pick one because they both can't work. And then you pick one and you're like, "Ah, that's not working. That's not, I don't know why this isn't like feeling like we need to lean in the way this song is leaning into it. And then even in the mix, because I knew the intention of this moment in our conversations with the actors and everybody along the way, we said, what if we just took out the song, the outro, and the intro? What if it was silence?
Mhm.
Silence in a musical can be very deadly because
Right.
anyone can laugh, anyone can ruin it. And so, okay, she closes the door and it's silence. And suddenly what we found was when she walked, our sound team added these footsteps that are almost like so pedestrian. She walks in with fanfare, and this time it's pedestrian. And that dress that we always make feel effervescent, suddenly you hear the sound of it like going up and down. It's like a clown outfit. That alone, just the sound is like almost feels meta, like, oh, that's Ariana Grande on a set in a costume. And that effect was so was shocked us when we watched this in the mix as we were futzing with this. And then when the music comes in, we don't have the music come in. She says, "Look, there's that girl in the mirror, that beautiful girl." And then we bring in only just the strings. And when the strings, and let's just bring the hesitant strings, the layer of just the, so she brings us in, and then the strings arise, and then it slowly comes into blossom as we go into the reflection. That is we have to you have to really love music and understand what music's doing. You have to really love and understand what sound is doing. You have to really love and understand what costume is saying and doing at that moment. And that's not me per se. That is our whole team. They may be called designers, but they are storytellers. And so every department has to understand the very clear vision of what we're trying to do. And so something like that is how we get through that process. And it is iterative.
Hmm.
But when you have a very clear horizon line, and everyone's adding to it, and then you can subtract or put that little thing in, it makes it a lot more organic of how it sort of emerges from the story itself.
I know you said that you edited a version of this, put it on the shelf, and didn't come back to it till the first film had come out. Did you learn something from the success of the first film that you then brought to how you then approached editing the second film?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we learned something. I mean, the basic plot is there. It is what it is. However, there are things when you come, there are questions when you're like, oh, wow, this is a very new thing. This is not a sequel. This is a continuation of a
Hmm.
story. It was always supposed to be two movies in a 1 year experience for the audience. So the usual sequel things make you have certain rules that you may or may not apply. Okay, you have to reestablish where are we? What time are we? What does everybody want again? Which means you have to, and in a musical, there's more rules. You have to establish that we have a musical language again. But we know where we have a musical language, but we still have to do that again. And then in a musical, you usually have the I want song right in the moment. It's sort of the inciting incident, I guess. And so, and that then guides you along the musical language of this. There's no I want song in Act Two, unless there is, unless couldn't be happier is the I want song. And yet the words that she's saying is the opposite of what she wants. And so it's a subversive version of that. And so, and then you have to have an actor who can sing this heartbreaking song, but be public and as if she's encouraging them. And yet, I don't even cut, I just push into her, and she's delivering this idea of doubting what it is, this thing that happiness is. And so again, the clarity of understanding this is what this song does structurally in a musical, but this is also what it will do in a character for her so that she can deliver that on that side. And even our VFX, we had in the show, there's a spotlight on her, everything dims down. That's not our language in our movie. Like she doesn't have magic, so even if you did that, it might be a little bit weird. And so how do you do that? How do you focus in? One sound, all the people fall away, and it's just her. And the we play with uh the sound of the microphone. So sometimes that sound of the microphone is as if it's on a PA, and then sometimes it comes in so close that you it doesn't feel like it's on a PA at all. And we're doing that almost imperceptibly, but we're choosing our mixers are choosing when it grows and when it shrinks down. And so we're utilizing these things to help the audience understand or just feel more connected to what she's saying. So all those things working together is that and that to me that's what we learned is we could lean into these things. Movie one, people were in on these characters, so all the structural stuff maybe not as important, the flashbacks and the stuff. People were in, so let's just continue and dive deeper into their character. What happens when you declare yourself? Independence can feel like rejection until it starts to feel like growth. And let's make sure we're tracking that. That's the number one thing. It's about the girls, stupid, as we were taught.
Given that the fandom tends to be Team Glinda or Team Elphaba, how do you balance the two in your storytelling?
Oh, that's a good question. What we found is all people want is for them to be together.
Hmm.
Movie two, it's tough because they're not together for the
Right,
first
exactly.
act, essentially. And you're waiting for it. And yet you have to lay some groundwork for what it feels like to not be together. We had edits where the scenes, when they were when in their own individual scenes, um, they were how it would be if you were Glinda, and they were how you'd be if you were Elphaba. What we found as we were editing it was that no matter who we're with, it has to evoke the other person in it. It has to be, oh, it's about Elphaba not being there, or it's about what Elphaba would have done if she were there, or if we're with Elphaba, it's what she is thinking about of Glinda, or what does she miss about Glinda. Those little, even and in scenes that you did not have either of them, Bach and Nessa, for instance, it had to be about the missing piece of why Elphaba isn't there and what that's caused in this rift. So that was an exploration that I'm not sure I fully understood until cutting this movie, of being like, how do we make this about what we want, which is about the girls coming together. And so that was an adjustment. And those scenes can be cut in ways that they don't refer to the other, and they're plot. But the moment we figured that out, it was a dance between, oh, I miss her in this way, and if I was just back, it would have been this way, and if I lived this way, it would have been like this, and if they were here, it would have been like this, and then they show up together, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is the moment, and that uncapping of that was actually also really interesting because that's not in the show when they actually come together for the first time. And we had many versions of this scene. And there are certain lines that are said to each other that on the show are classic Bible lines that have to hit and have to be a joke. I didn't know you're still flying around on that old thing. Like that's a joke. That's a hit. And then she said, well, we can't fly around and we can't all fly around on bubble. Like how do you play that when in reality, in the truth of the scene, it's the first time that two friends see each other? It's like two lovers seeing each other for the first time and they both have they're both significant others there. And you're like, I feel so close to you. Can I hug you? And then you realize, oh, we don't know each other. Or do we know each other? And the way those girls, and we had a lot of conversation with these girls, which is why they are so brilliant. They were so present that they didn't have to hit the joke and we didn't have to remove the joke. The joke would be a bridge to say, I'm still here, and the other it would be a recognition of the other, like she's still here. And then that emptiness, that pause, the we always said like the truth is in the dark, the lies are in the light, and the lies are in the loud, and the truth is in the quiet. And so when they're just staring at each other, um, Myron, our editor, can just sit there and watch. And I love this moment where Elphaba says to her, I know, I just wanted to say hi.
Mhm.
Like if you wrote that in, I mean, it is written in the script, but like Typically in any other movie, you'd be like, and what? But the way she performs it is just so true. You're like, she's just buying time just to like feel her presence. It's not a big action. It's not a big thing. It's she misses her, and they can't say that to each other necessarily. Um, and so those are the things I think that really, when we really distill this movie about them, that we were deconstructing this idea of how do we make it feel like no matter where they are, they're the handprints on their hearts, even
Mhm.
before they sing those words.
How beholden did you feel to being true to the Bible, as you called it, of Wicked the musical, honoring Wizard of Oz, the original, and then but still making it your own and finding your own sort of true north in all of this?
I think I was lucky that I saw Wicked before it ever was on Broadway. So I consider myself a patient zero. I had no expectations of it. I just knew it was Stephen Schwartz's new musical, and I remember the first feelings of, oh, we're in Oz. Oh, this is like the Oz that I know from Wizard of Oz. Oh, this is more subversive. Oh, she didn't have a mother that was just a regular mother. Oh, what is wickedness? Oh, that's so. Oh, this is not the Wicked Witch. This is someone else. And oh, did that actually happen to her? That didn't happen to her. Does water actually melt her? Oh my. I know I kept that very sacred, that first experience, because I knew that I was had to serve those people
Mhm.
as well. But I'm also a fan of the musical, so I also know the things that like you can't lose that, you can't lose this. And we checked each other. I think at a certain point we linked arms and said we're never going to get the validation that we normally get in a movie for many, many years. You're not going to just hear people what they feel about this. So we're going to have to be okay with this. So what do they say when at some point a conductor has to turn their backs to the audience and face the orchestra. And I think we did that very early because we knew this was going to be a long-term thing, and that we had enough knowledge amongst each other, enough respect for the material, and for the extended material of the Wizard of Oz and the L. Frank Baum book. I mean, Ari read every single L. Frank Baum book about Oz, so she had a deep knowledge of that too. That we could trust our instincts on this, and if we couldn't trust our instinct, we didn't know, we would do it both ways, and then in the edit, we would see where we ended up. All we knew was find the truth in the material. If this were going to feel like a climb, if this were all about the friendship, then we have to believe this relationship is real and the stakes are real, which means the place has to be real, and which means the threats have to be real. So if as long as those all felt truthful, then everything could fall into place. And that was sort of our guiding light. Otherwise, it's you get distracted by so many. There's too many technical things, pre-records and sets and VFX and all this stuff. And I'd done enough VFX movies that I've learned my lessons when that stuff gets to get to you. And I've done my rom-coms and I've done my dance movies and I've done my musicals. And so it was really helpful to have that knowledge. I think if you had asked me to do this movie 10 years ago, I think I would have thought I could, but I actually couldn't. Both on the technical side of it, but actually on the emotional side of it. I think I needed to go through loss. I think I needed to go through friends who were going through mental illness eras of their life. What happens when your friend changes, and how do you be there for them when you're not sure what happens when your country changes and the things that you believe in? What happens when COVID happens and your home feels like you feel like a stranger in your own home? And what is it, what home means? I think all those things I had to sort of get out of my soul in this movie in order to really make it feel true.
All right, last question because I need to let you go. What was the moment when you knew that you nailed it, that you were like, I've got this?
Oh, what's weird is like there was no destination goal in this. I think it was about trusting process and like I felt like when I saw them do that closet scene, even before we shot it in rehearsals, they did for good, and then I didn't call cut, and it was just me and them in an office building, and um, they just kept going because they were just present in the moment. And she put her in this like pretend closet, and they said, "I love you." These words were not written on the page at that time. I'm like scurrying, writing down, what are they saying to each other? And they really said goodbye to each other. And it felt so raw. And then she shuts the door, and then they both are like bawling, and I'm bawling. And I'm like, this is brilliant. This is what the cinematic version of this needs. You have the song, which is helping each other, and then you have the door close and you have no one else. And it's the moment, like, after you say goodbye to a friend or after a funeral or something, you close the door and there's just silence and you don't know what to do with yourself. And then you let yourself go.
Mm.
That's when I knew We had something very special that the a staged musical could never do, that we had access to these characters that we so love that we
Mhm.
never had access to before. And you had actors who understood how to get us there.